This is the Final Round Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt. Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this edition of the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast. Excited to have you along for the ride tonight. Got a good show on deck for everybody. Episode number 72 is here. Before we get too deep into things, though, I got to point this out. This is awesome. Jason has dressed up for Halloween.
Yes, I have.
Dug out the Ronnie Sox game-worn jersey. This is so cool.
It's funny. I will say that looking at it on screen, it is a lot more white than it really is in person. It needs a good restoration. It's a touch yellowed, essentially, after 40 years. But, yeah, I figured in the spirit of Halloween, rather than wear a helmet like most racing, I guess, kids would, and I'm sure like a lot of people would probably appreciate not looking at my ugly mug if I was wearing a helmet. And unfortunately, all my clown suits are at the dry cleaners, so I figure I'll dress up like a vintage Ronnie Sox crew person and try and make Sean Beatty jealous if I can.
Sean's got an extensive collection.
He has a very extensive collection. This is probably the prize of
But
my...
he doesn't have one of those.
I don't believe he does. Yeah, I don't believe he does. I think I might be the only one in Western New York to have one of these. There wasn't many of them that were made and survived.
Do you know the story of how it came to be in your closet?
So the short answer to that is no, I don't. I know that... So this was for Ronnie Sox's Rod Shop Dodge team, which... Don Carlton was part of that at some point in time after the missile program. So I know my uncle kind of helped out at some point in time. How we came to own this shirt, though, I don't know. But my dad has owned it since as long as I can remember. And it was always something that was soup that my dad thought was super cool. And I will say that we had crew shirts made for our own racing team back in I want to say around 1990. And our crew shirts look very similar to this.
Yeah.
This was the inspiration for the Oldfield Racing Team shirts because my dad thought it was so cool.
It is cool. It is very cool. Would you sell it?
Everything has a price. So I would field offers, but I guess I would say that it would definitely start in the 5 digits and go up from there. So
5 plus.
Yeah, I mean, at some point in time, I'd be silly not to sell it, but
right.
Yeah, it does mean a lot to me overall. So
I think it's so cool.
Yeah, and you can't see the back at the moment, but yeah, it's cool on the back. It's got custom embroidered Ronnie Sox, Rod Shop Dodge. It's a cool shirt for sure. What I need to do is I need to have it framed and put up in the house someplace so I can display it rather than just having it hang in my closet.
The last thing you want to do is like walk through a door or something and have a latch catch it or something crazy.
Right, right, exactly.
You can put that someplace safe. But we gotta shift our attention back to. Whoops, we don't want that camera angle yet. We're gonna shift our attention back to our guest who's waiting in the wings. May or may not be dressed up for Halloween. It's the phone in. Robin Stambaugh-Schoeman joining us tonight to talk a little bit about the funny car season. Been out a number of times with the car through the course of this year and was just out here this past weekend. So love to hear about how that went for you. Welcome again to the show. Good to talk with you again, Robin.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Jason. How you guys doing tonight?
Great. Yourself?
Awesome.
Good.
So how'd it go this weekend?
It went good. It was at the Virginia Motorsports Park, and it was the Menards Chevy Show, which is a series. I think they go to about 10 or 12 tracks, usually the big NHRA tracks. And they have lots of things for the Chevy enthusiasts. They have swap meets, car shows, obviously the bracket racing, and then they always have some sort of pro show. Well, we were lucky enough to be included in that pro show, and it was us with our funny car, our Corvette funny car, along with John Wall and his Fireball Monza. So it was just a 2-car match race, grudge race, and it was a fun time.
How were the passes?
The first pass, we had tire shake both times, just a little bit off the line. The first pass was a 691, and the second one was a 732. So the first pass John had some problems, so I was able to take the win. And the second pass, he ran an awesome 6:58, so he definitely beat me on that one. So we'll have to settle that score somewhere else.
Awesome.
So it was just the two passes, so it went down 1-1?
Yes, it was supposed to be 3. Originally, it was supposed to be 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday,
Yep.
Which would have been great. But there was weather that came in on Sunday, so they shortened the event just to a Friday-Saturday deal, and that meant just 2 runs for us.
Right. It's unfortunate because it's always for match races. Not that obviously you're trying to put on a show, but at the same point in time,
Right.
everybody's a competitor, right? And you want to win, and
Yep, yeah.
So it would have been nice to have had the best 2 out of 3, and basically won that 2, and basically pounded your chest and said, "Hey, yeah, I'm the baddest funny car on the property this weekend."
Yeah, have bragging rights for the off season, right?
Right, exactly. So is this going to be the last race then for you for the year?
It is, yes, unless we decide to go out testing somewhere, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we'll be done for the year until the weather breaks again here in the spring in Virginia, which is usually in March we can get back out.
Which is about 2 months earlier than...
Right.
Yes, exactly. A lot earlier than you guys.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. This year in particular, I know it was nasty. I don't know how it was down for you, but I don't think we actually were able to run literally any races in this area until like mid-May.
Oh my goodness! I don't know what I don't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do with myself if that was the case. We had our first race the end of April, I think it was our first booked match race.
Yep.
And the weather had broken a little bit before there, but we actually had a doubleheader weekend. It was there's a big Easter race at a track called Eastside Speedway. It's a little 8-mile track, and I think they've been doing it for like 40-some years. And that is on Easter Sunday every year. Well, it got canceled this year due to weather, which was rain.
Yeah.
So we ended up kicking off the season at Virginia Motorsports Park, which is nice because it was close to home, on Saturday, and then Sunday heading over to Eastside. So it's kind of neat doubleheader weekend. That's kind of old school match racing right there.
Right. Now I forget what was the story behind the Corvette body. That body is. I'll call it a 78. Is that the exact year?
Well, yeah, we're calling it a 79.
Okay.
And the previous, it was the Cassidy brothers Corvette, which if you look it up on the internet, I'm sure you can find it. It was red. And then it went through a couple different people before we got it. And then we had it for a while. And that body was actually broken in 2 in a snowstorm when we had it. We had it sitting outside on sawhorses because we have quite a few funny car bodies, and that one just didn't make it inside. And we had a bad snowstorm, and it broke it literally in half. So, yeah, it's been repaired and, in one piece now. So, but it's awesome that it's an old body. That we like it that it's, a real vintage classic body.
Right. Yeah, I will say that is definitely, of all the old funny car bodies, that's definitely one of my favorite. The Tom Hoover Showtime Corvette is one of my favorite funny cars of all time, and that was that same body basically, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. We have another. I'm not sure if you've seen our other car, but we actually have an earlier one. We call it a 74, and it's got the flat back window. And that's you may have seen it. It's red with flames on it. So we actually have 2 Corvettes. So we have both of them. I can't remember which year the Showtime was, and then the Mongoose car was one of my favorite cars as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I will say I'm not sure how old you are. I won't ask, but I'm old enough to be.
I'm as old as that body. I'm as old as the body on the car. There you go.
Okay. All right. Well, see, I'm older than that, and I'm old enough to remember being a little kid and having the the English leather Mongoose Corvette and the Snake Prudhomme Matchbox cars, and those by far were my favorite cars to sit and play with, right? And it's pretty incredible. Chris was just showing a picture of I guess it was the 74.
That was the red one.
The red one with the flames, and then he showed, I'm guessing the current one, the 79, which is black, it looks like?
Yes. Yep, that's exactly. Yeah, black with it's pretty awesome paint job on it. Chuck Buckler of Chuck B Designs laid down that paint. It's all paint. There's no stickers on there at all, and airbrushed and everything, and it's just incredible. When you see it in person, it's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I will say that it looks really cool in the picture that Chris is showing. Actually, that's from Virginia Motorsports Park. I wonder if is that from this weekend?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
no kidding.
Black Dragon PHP photo right there.
Oh, yeah, that's a super cool picture of the car for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That red car, I had a Hot Wheels Stingray. It looked like
nice.
that, and I remember that thing. I had a funny car Pepsi Challenger where the lid the lid popped up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Sean Beatty. Sean Beatty had the Pepsi Challenger go-kart.
Really?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, I've seen those.
I saw Hawaiian Punch one for sale the other day.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that...
I wanted one of those so bad when I was a kid. And
me
that
too.
That was the Red Ryder BB gun.
Right.
My mom said if I ever got my hands on that, I would die.
Yeah. Yeah, there was...
She's probably right.
There was a Budweiser King one that was for sale right down the street from my house, and I regret not stopping and buying that every day.
Oh, you should have.
Yeah, that was, I have to say, the vintage funny car body that you have really, in my mind, is, kind of the golden age of funny cars. And I'm sure there would be some that would argue that maybe it was a little bit earlier than 78. But again, because of my age and being the age that I was at the time that those cars were running, it was just the coolest. And I have to say that I really love the nostalgia funny cars, the nostalgia funny car circuit, but you had mentioned that your body is a real body, right? And some of the nostalgia funny cars out there, in my opinion, they let them get away with a little too much aerodynamics. And yeah, it's a '69 Camaro, but it's not really within what I would consider to be the spirit of the rules.
Yeah, that's we have actually a couple friends of ours that make reproductions of the bodies.
Yep.
Which most of them are made off of, an old car mold. Like we have a 71 Charger as well.
Okay.
And that was all the 71 Chargers that are running now that are a newer body was made off that old one. So I guess what I really meant by that was exactly what you said. Some of the ones on the West Coast that are just, where there was never actually really a funny car like that.
That's right.
They, like you said, they look cool.
Yeah.
But, so we're kind of, our family, my dad, who passed away in 2011, and then my brother and I, we're kind of purists when it comes to a lot of that. And we like keeping things how they were, if that makes sense, with a little bit, more technology in them. But we do like, having, the chassis on this car is a Sarté chassis. We're not exactly sure what year it is. We're thinking, somewhere in the 70s, mid-70s. That's been obviously updated, checked over.
Right.
It has to get certified every year and all that stuff. But we like having these older cars and the older bodies and the more original type stuff. And I don't want to offend anybody out there by saying, it's not a real funny car or anything like that, because that's not the truth. So.
Look at this picture, right?
We can offend all the people we want.
Look at this. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is super cool. Now,
This is from at Virginia Motorsports Park. This was shared from back in January last year.
Okay. Yep.
Getting ready for the April reunion race that they had in the spring, and it's just a cool picture, man. Those cars look they look like they're flying in their stage.
I can't read the name of it's a Charger, right? The one in the left-hand lane. I can't read that from here.
It's Sweetman Brothers, I think.
Oh, Sweetman Brothers. Yeah, that's a Citation, a Chevy Citation.
Oh, it is a Citation. I was going to say, it kind of looked like a Citation, but wow. I didn't know that there was a Citation body ever.
Yeah, it was. It's a Chevy Citation, and it's Sweetman Brothers, and it's Henry Sweetman is the father in that, and then Drew and Danny Sweetman. Drew is the driver.
Yeah.
But that body goes back to when Henry was driving. And same paint and everything, so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
they are running with that car this year, and then also they have a frantic Ford, Ford Mustang body as well. But we ran 8 cars at that nostalgia race that you're talking about at Virginia Motorsports Park. It was an 8-car show with the Great Lakes Nostalgia Funny Car Circuit running at the Nostalgia Show. We run a lot of match races with the Great Lakes guys. They're great group of racers. Denny Salswimmer, he runs the group and does a great job.
You put up some impressive numbers earlier this year with a fast pass. The fast pass was at 2:02. You were in the mid-sixes with that. How did the year progress?
Yeah, we're getting there. The best pass this year was a 6:73, I believe it was, at Quaker City in Ohio. And then we ran another 70 and an 80 at Atco Dragway at the end of the year. So, yeah, it's definitely, we're run with the Great Lakes cars, we actually run on a 690 index. And then we also run at some of these other races where you can run whatever you want as far as any ET you want. So, we're kind of shooting for the 690, but at the open races, we like to go a little bit quicker.
Right.
And the 690 index, is that, I guess I would call it a soft index, like you can break out by a tenth, or is it, 690 is it?
No, 690, yeah, 690 is the number.
Okay.
690 is the number, so, we do have a winner with that, sponsored by Peak, and we have Peak and S&W and a couple different other sponsors on there, and they do have a winner at every race. We run usually Chicago-style shows, so if you run a 689, you're not qualified number one. It's anything over 690. So, but it's great. It's a fun deal, and 690 is plenty fast in one of these cars.
Now, how many of these types of cars, I guess, are out there that are typically running with you? Are there? Let's call it on the east. Let's call it the Northeast. I would call Virginia still the Northeast, barely.
Yeah.
But in the Northeast, are there 32 of these types of cars out there?
Maybe not in the actual just Northeast. From, let's just say, New York, Ohio. Let's exclude Ohio for purposes right now. But let's say New York, up in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, up that down to Virginia. I'd say you probably have a good 20 cars.
Oh, that's
maybe a couple more than that. And then you add the Midwest in with that, Indiana, Ohio, stuff like that. You probably have another 10 to 15 out there.
Yeah. Well, that's quite a few.
And that's some that, don't run a lot, that maybe just run a couple races a year, which is fine. I would say you probably have a good pick from about 30 or 35 total. And that's with, people, like I said, that only run maybe just a couple times a year at their local track as well.
Right.
It's a pretty neat deal.
Is it remarkably expensive to run one of these?
Well, it can be. It's a race car, just like anything else.
I heard the question after I asked it.
It depends how many parts you hurt, but the intention is not to hurt parts. That's not what you want to do. So
sure.
Once you have your combination figured out, it's just basic maintenance for the most part, and then whatever that may mean for you, whether it's you put a brand new set of rods in it every year, or whatever that is, change the oil every race, change plugs every run. It just depends what the individual team owner and crew chief decide what they're going to do.
Gotcha.
Clutch parts, we run a clutch, so for us, we have to put, clutch disc or floaters in it. Not every race by any means, but, maybe a couple times a year. So it really just depends on how much you're running.
Sure.
So I wouldn't be able to give you a number on that, and it really just depends on the program.
Nobody wants to think about that actual number anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I say for racing in general, I will say that it's one of those things where you even have an estimate in your head, and you're like, yeah, okay, I probably spent $10,000 this year, right? And it's like, and then you go back and you look and you're like, oh, yeah, it was actually a lot closer to 15 than 10, right?
Yeah, for me, I'm a numbers person, so most of my friends that run, they're like, I don't want to know. Well, I want to know what the total numbers are at the end of the year, What did we bring in with the car, and what did we spend? How much fuel did we use over the year, stuff
right.
like that.
With around here, we look at things in relative terms. A really, really good 360 sprint car program would be about the same as a very good sportsman modified program.
Mm-hmm.
It would not get you into the very good range 358 program.
Yeah.
And it would not touch a thing when it comes to a big block modifier.
Right.
The $15,000, $18,000, $20,000 budget you have in a Sportsman buys you half the big block motor.
Yep.
You know, so that's some of the perspective when we ask about is it expensive, because 17 times to run a vintage funny car seemed like a high number too. When you look at that, it's a paired up match race and stuff like that. It's not like you've got a weekly track that you need to worry about chasing points at, right?
Right, exactly. There's not, and we're just booked into, we run a lot, like I said, with the Great Lakes Nostalgia Funny Cars. We run a couple races with a group called Earthshaking Entertainment, and then the rest of our races are booked directly through the tracks themselves.
Sure.
And I think we actually ran 15 races it ended up being this year. But even still, I mean, we don't have to chase points or anything like that. None of these series have any points. So you're right. I mean, it's, something kind of completely different. And what your analogy with the dirt cars is exactly right on.
Yeah, and I will say that 15 times you guys got out more than I did this year. So I mean, I guess to a certain extent that talks about how great my racing season was. But 15 times. I mean, that's for me at this point in my racing career, if I could go out racing every other weekend, I'm pretty happy with that. And to be out 15 times, I'd have to be out every other weekend with the shortened racing season that we have, basically from May 1st to November 1st at the very latest.
The other thing with you though is one, you got a car owner that's willing to go whenever.
Yeah,
you're not chasing any points, but you're also not booked to be there. You're not scheduled.
That's correct.
To have to arrive either. So I mean, there's some nuance with that comparison too.
It depends, I guess, right? I mean, if we're talking Western Yacht Super Rod Association, where I'm running the races, then I'm kind of obligated to go whether I want to or not. But Phil and I are generally on the same page from that aspect. That if we've been out testing, let's call it, we've tested, we've raced, we've tested, and it's like, we could go race this weekend. Do you want to do that, or you want to sit out on the deck and drink beer? I'm okay sitting out on the deck and drinking beer this weekend. It's definitely not the same as it was when, and I'm sure Robin would say the same thing. I mean, my guess is, when your dad was alive, it was a different dynamic, right, than it is going racing now. I mean,
yeah, I think honestly, I believe there was more races back then. I think, when they were touring match racing, not my dad particularly, because he was more of a local match racer, but when you're talking about the big names, Mongoose, Snake, all them, when they were traveling, running national events and also match racing, there were shows during the week. There was shows, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
And there was a lot more races, and I think now, just in general, there's so many things for people to do, not just go to the races, that, it's not as busy of a schedule. I mean, with those 15 races we did this year, we were still almost, I think we had 1.7 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
Because it started the end of, April and ended just this past weekend.
Yep.
However, we didn't run for the entire month of October.
Yep.
Our last race before this Virginia race was in Bristol, Tennessee, at again, another Chevy show, the last weekend of September. So it was a lot, and it was awesome. I mean, I don't want to do anything else. This is all I've ever wanted to do. So, it's pretty neat. But I think you're right. The dynamic has changed a lot, because I think the availability of races was a lot more.
Right.
Back in the 70s when my dad was doing it.
So you're not chasing points. It's booked events. You're still racing against other people. You've got the dial that you have to hit. What ends up being, aside of not hurting parts and spending money you don't have to, what ends up being the goal for the season? Like what's your target? What do you go out with?
For us, we want to put on a good show wherever we go. That's important, because that's important for the, movement, for the match race movement, the nostalgia funny cars and everything. You want to do a good burnout. You want to, get a good time up on the board, whatever that is, whether that's the index or, it's an open show so you go quicker. You want to just, I think you're asking, what motivates you, right?
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
What motivates us is our love of racing, and our love of, this is what we love to do. So with some of the match races, there is no winner, and so you do have to kind of be like, what are you doing? Are you trying to beat your personal best, the car's best? Are you testing something while you're racing? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. And for us, it's the love of racing, love of being at the racetrack, and we have good friends that we race with. And yeah, you want to run as quick as you can, whether that's on the index or not, and that's what we want to do.
You know what I like about that answer? The first thing that we hit on was make sure it's a good show.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's important. That's important.
Yeah, I agree with that. Important. It is an entertainment based program, and
you and I'm sure have talked about this before. And when I go to the races and I'm actually there in person competing, I generally am not thinking, okay, I need to put on a show for the spectators. Mm-hmm. However, in my personal opinion, one of the things that has killed drag racing is the fact that racers have forgotten that, hey man, this is entertainment. And if you want spectators to show up and sit in the seats, you got to give them a reason to do that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I have to say that my personal opinion, it's like throttle stop racing, what I do has killed that. It's killed it. Nobody wants to sit in the stands and watch a car leave like my wife's Lincoln Continental. They just don't. And yeah, that's something that's very important. And especially for the type of racing that they're doing, because they're a booked-in show. But Robin, are you also like doing things like selling T-shirts?
Yes, we have T-shirts. We have handouts to give to whoever
right.
Kids,
and from that standpoint, right? That helps pay obviously for your obsession.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, what do you want to do? You want to do a great burnout. So the little kid is like, "Oh my God, Dad, that was the coolest thing ever! I want to get one of their T-shirts."
I like.
Well, the most important thing is to put on a show because the tracks are paying us.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
There. And so that's, it's, of course, you're going to have times during the year where you don't get down the track, and when that happens, I get very upset because that's not what you're getting paid to do.
Right, sure.
And that's, on the business side of it, I'm always looking in the stands to see how many people are there, how is it looking, because that's important to be able to be asked back to these tracks and to be able to, promote these Night of Fire shows or Chevy shows or whatever it is. You've got to have the people, in the stands and, excited about what you're doing.
Right.
I guess where I was going with the question originally was how does one gauge or what is the barometer to determine a successful season or not? So instead of counting wins and losses, I like the motivation angle, but I guess if you get invited back, it's a good indicator that you did a good job, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. In this case, yeah, clearly, if you go out and put seats in the stands and people are telling the track owner, and now with nowadays with social media, it's probably pretty easy, right? You see a big buzz on social media about, hey, I was just at Echo and this was a super cool show. I can't wait to go again next year. That speaks volumes.
So
exactly
with you as a promoter,
yeah,
you say this event, you are betting on yourself to perform. At the end of the day, you are saying, I'm willing to put up my 20 for a chance at winning X amount at the end of the day.
Yeah.
This, as essentially an independent contractor, is showing up. Does then, Robin, do you guys have the ability to take out any type of insurance against your ability to perform to safeguard against a mechanical failure or anything?
No, there's nothing like that. No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what happens? What happens if you get booked in someplace?
Well, there was supposed to be 3 and there was 2, right?
Right. Yeah, something like that. What happens in a situation like that with that third person? They just don't get paid, or?
You just negotiate with the track and with whatever the track or the organization. If it rains, we had a couple rainouts this year. There may be rain money involved. If you've already gone to the track, there may not. Every track, every organization is different.
You can say that again.
Is different on what happens on if you're going to get paid for a run that you broke on or didn't run as well as you should have been. Every track is different. Every promoter is different on what they're going to do with that.
Yeah.
So your goal is always to put on the best show and run it as good as you can. And back to what you were saying as far as what's the judge of a good season. For us, it would be we had an engine issue during the year. We had a race in 10 days. We had a new engine back together back in the car, so we didn't miss any races.
Cool.
A lot of people would be missing races.
Right.
For us, that's what you have to do. When you're booked in someplace, you have to be there no matter what. Running personal best and car best, that's something. For me as a driver, I've only been driving this car. This is only my second year. So, for me, burnout's getting better and longer and smokier. For me, that's a big thing. So there's lots of different ways you can, tell, how your season, did it go better than this year or better last year? What did we do?
It's funny because, just thinking about it now, it's like that she hit on one point that really is different between what they're doing and what I'm doing. So as the organizer of the West New York Super Rod Association, if this coming weekend my car is broke, I don't necessarily have to take my car out there. I would like to have my car out there, but we had a situation actually this season where we were broke. We were not able to go to the races. I still went to the track that weekend to make sure that the show went off, but I didn't have to show up as a competitor. In her situation, the car has to be ready, right? And I am sure, and I'm not going to say that this happens all the time because drag racers generally like to go drag racing, but I am sure over the course of Robin's racing career, there have been times where the car has been broke in some form or another, and it was like, I really wish we didn't have to get this thing back together for this weekend. It'd be really nice just to be able to tinker with this over the next couple of weeks and get it ready for our next race, a month from now, right?
Well, not really. We were raised by our old man that you make a commitment, you're going to be there.
Oh, sure.
You don't want to miss a race because you want to be you want to be reliable. You want to be that person that no matter what.
Yeah, Jason.
Well, yeah, but that's what I would say. That's what drives you, though, right? Is the fact that hey, you gave a commitment, so you have to show up. But it's like if you didn't have that commitment there, would you work? Like I said, generally drag racers want to go drag racing, but at the same point in time, if you had a ton of work and you were busy, I mean, obviously you're not doing this full time, right? I mean, you actually have a real, let's call it 9-to-5 job that you're doing at the same time. So you have a busy work week, and now you're going to have late nights all week trying to get the car ready. It'd be like, oh man, if we didn't have this event this weekend, it wouldn't be such a hassle for us to get it ready. But you made a commitment, so now you have to get out there to do that, and that's now where you've taken in the I do this as a business sort of versus I'm just doing it as a hobby.
And to be honest with you, I know I keep going back to it, but I think we would do the same thing, even if it was just a hobby. I think we would do the same thing. That's just kind of how we want to race. That's what we want to do. And you're right. I work for an engineering company, and then me and my brother own New Generation Racing, which is a speed shop.
Yep.
Down here, an old school speed shop, and then he builds a ton of engines and everything like that. So yeah, sometimes it's hard to fit in the time to service the car or to fix something when it's broke, but we just managed to do it because that's just all we've ever known.
Right.
And that's so I can't tell you where there's been a time where it's been like, oh man, I wish I didn't have a race or something like that. Just I know I can speak for myself, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for my brother on this. There's nowhere we'd rather be than the racetrack.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, no, we're good with if we got to work all night to get it ready, then that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, so you and I are at different points in our racing careers because, pulling all-nighters to get out to the track, yep, not interested. So one of the things that you had mentioned earlier, and I mean, this is kind of going way back in the conversation, you had mentioned that you guys are still running a clutch transmission. So is it a 2-speed that you're running now?
No, we're running a 3-speed Lenco is the transmission. It's a 3-speed Lenco that's air shifted. And then it's a AFT pedal clutch. So basically, that setup is very similar to what modern day alcohol funny cars are running.
Okay.
Probably not all, most all, but a lot of the modern day alcohol funny cars that are running, 550s, 560s, whatever, that's what they run.
Okay.
And that's what we like to run. Is it needed in a car of this caliber? No. You can run an automatic transmission. But again, that goes back to what we enjoy running.
Right.
And more for the driver to do and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a 3-speed. It's a 3-speed, so that's what it is.
Okay, yeah, and I was curious as to whether, I figured that one of the other options essentially was an automatic, because I know there's pro mods out there that are running automatics.
We run a lot of people that run automatics.
Yeah, is there anybody doing direct drive? Is that even possible with, I guess, with an alcohol car?
Not with an alcohol car. With an alcohol car, you really need it to shift.
Yeah.
With nitro cars, almost all the nitro cars, well, that's not true either. The new style nitro cars are direct drive, but usually the ones, like on the West Coast and all that, like in California Hot Rods Union, they usually shift once. Some of them may be direct drive.
Right. Okay.
So they're running 2-speed.
I would say another thing that when Chris was showing a picture, I saw a sticker, a very large sticker that said "Ethanol Performs" on your trailer. Is your trailer? Was that an old Mark Thomas trailer?
That's not ours. That's probably Bunny Burkett's trailer in the background somewhere.
Oh, okay. You know what? And I did see the I saw the Bunny Burkett sticker on the door actually too.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably that picture is probably either one side of her trailer or maybe actually even her car.
Okay.
My brother drives her car. He's been driving it for several years, and he's one of the drivers of it. So.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember that. And how is Bunny doing these days?
She's doing well, doing great. They just finished up their season this past weekend as well with Gary Pritchett at the wheel of it. They ran, I think, a 604 and then a 590 something, I believe. And they were at Budds Creek, Maryland International Raceway at, over there running the Mopar show. So they just finished up the same day we did this year. So they're doing good.
And would you ever run against your brother when he's driving that car?
Yep. Yeah, we actually did that earlier this year. We did that at Cecil County Dragway earlier this year for 2 runs, and it was pretty awesome to do that, to run against him. It was a neat deal.
So I guess what do you do in a situation like that? I mean, when you're out there, he's doing that, and you're driving your car. I mean, you get just friends and family to help kind of come out and pitch in to take his place on your team?
Exactly. That's exactly what we do. Matt, Bunny has her crew on there, and then, if we're not running our car, I'll help on that car as well.
Okay.
But on our to take Matt's place, Matt, at that particular race, he did everything on our car that he needed to do, and basically the only thing he didn't do was start the car and put me in the tracks and bring in the beams.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have our crew that's very capable of doing that as well. So. Yeah, it was a really neat deal to be able to do that.
And how many people, I guess, if you go out to the track on let's call it a normal weekend, and you have your brother at your disposal, I mean, how many people do you take to the track as far as the entire crew goes?
Yeah, including me, and then my brother's wife, and then my husband, Jeff. Usually we have 1 or 2 extra people, so I would say 5 or 6.
Okay.
And that's, including, like I said, myself and then my brother's wife as well.
So if you had a skeleton crew, I mean,
it would be me, my brother, and Jeff.
Okay, I would say I'm assuming that. If you absolutely had to, could you do it with 2 people? Could it be just you and your brother?
Yeah, yep, it could. It could, and what you would do is, somebody's got to move the car. Move the tow vehicle when you start the car. You would just grab somebody, one of your friends, to do that or something.
Yeah, okay.
But that's not a problem. In fact, the first time I ever drove a blown car, there was no one there except for me and my brother. So it was an altered, and that was the first time we had a friend that we thought was coming. He didn't, so Matt's like, all right, well, you're going to drive today. So it was just me and him. So it worked out just fine.
It's I have not me personally, but similar story. A buddy of mine, Billy Lieber, he took Joe Lilienthal's blown Jeep, and that car, I will say, at that point in time probably ran 790s, somewhere in there. And Billy had never driven a blower car previously, and he was racing super gas essentially. And Joe's like, "Oh, go race my car," and Billy's like, "All right, I'll take it." And he went out to the track by himself. It's like, are you crazy? And I guess that's one of the things. It's like with this type of car, I mean, you can't really run it for the most part by yourself. I mean, so he went to the track, I guess, and tried to, find somebody to help him out. But I mean, you really need to have at least generally, hopefully, a couple of people to help you. But but you can do it with.
Ours is not self-starting, so
right.
Ours has a starter that goes on the front, and then it also needs to, have some fuel squirted in there as well to prime it when you're starting it. So that's the big thing. There's no starter on board to be able to do that. But I mean, you can definitely run it with two people.
Why something I don't know anything about blower cars for the most part. Why do you have to prime it with gas to get it started? You can't just start it with a normal fuel system on alcohol?
Well, it just depends on what your setup is, and some people actually do prime it with alcohol. We've always done gas. That's how we were always taught. But some people do prime it with alcohol. So again, it just depends on what your setup is.
Can you just not get enough fuel to it to start it without priming it like that?
Yeah, well, because your fuel is, there is no fuel in the motor at that point. So you're not going to open the throttle, you're not going to open the throttle and then, start at the same time and have it rev up just like you would if you're thinking about like a carbureted car where you give it a couple pumps and then kind of open it a little bit to give it some fuel in there. You're not going to do that in a car like that.
Yeah, and you have a mechanical fuel pump, right? Not an electric fuel pump. So
exactly.
Yeah. Okay,
exactly.
All right. And I guess why does the motor or the injector, why does it frost over like it does?
Well, when you're running alcohol, that's just part of it. It burns a little bit cooler. So when cooler days out and stuff like that, when it's shut and at idle, it'll just get frosty. Yeah,
I've always thought that was pretty incredible. And I know you actually have to be concerned about the butterflies freezing closed, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was about 70 on Saturday, and we didn't have to use de-icer at all this year. But the idle, what'll happen is the idle will change. Right before Matt brought me in the beams, he just sprayed a little de-icer on the butterflies there just to make sure there's no issues with that. They won't necessarily, they're not going to get glued shut, but it will change the idle a lot.
Huh. That's interesting.
I've seen some derby cars frost up like that.
Have you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The whole top of the intake gets all frosted over and cold.
Yeah. See, I don't run alcohol, so I don't know the first thing about. Other than I know it takes more volume than gasoline. I don't really know much about it from that standpoint. I know you got to be more careful with the fuel, and you got to be a little bit more into your normal maintenance because of it's kind of hard on stuff. But yeah, as far as things like that, frosting the manifold over and stuff, never had to worry about that with racing gasoline.
No,
never your problem.
Yeah.
But this is probably a question you've had before. What's the biggest difference between like 150 miles an hour and 200?
50 miles an hour.
It just pulls a lot harder. It just pulls a lot harder on the top end. That's cool. You just feel in the car like you're going faster. That's all. I know that's not an easy answer, but it's hard to explain. It's when you're on a good path.
Right. I mean, can you even imagine going that fast? I can't. You got to look. You're focused past the line, right? You're focused past where you're going because you're going to get there by the time your eyes dial into it.
Yeah. I will say, I can't. I don't know what it's like to go that fast. I will say, just like Rob mentioned, I do know that when you're on a good pass, you do know it. Even just. It's crazy because a small difference in performance, 500ths, you can feel the difference in 500ths.
Yeah.
And it's just, I know with my car, the fastest that I've gone on my car is 930 something. And when I took the throttle stop off and basically just let it eat, essentially, it's like, okay, wow, this thing is really sitting me back in the seat the entire way. This is a pretty fast. It's like, what did I expect? I mean, I had no idea. I figured, well, the fastest I'd been before that was like 960. So I'm like, if it runs low 50, I'd probably be pretty happy. And yeah, it was like 937 or something like that it ran. But yeah, I mean, it for sure.
That's cool.
I mean, and I guess it's probably for Robin, I would guess that it's probably a lot more fun to run your car when you're running at 650s, 670s than it is 690, right?
Well, I've never run a 650, but I can't wait to see what it's going to feel like there. But yes, it is. I mean, just the 690 pass versus the 730 pass this past weekend. I knew it wasn't that good. And when I first started driving, everything was just happening so fast. And now, and even last year, things started slowing down to where it feels fast. Don't get me wrong. You're going really fast. You got to be on top of your game, but things are slowing down. You notice more things that are happening in the car.
Yep.
So, feeling different things. And like you were saying about looking down the track, I focus down towards the scoreboards pretty much, on the horizon. Now that's also because, for me, sitting behind the blower, there's not much visibility there. So
Sure.
I call it the horizon, but it's not really the horizon. I look, way past there. That's what I'm focusing on.
So many different places to go with that. Oh my. I just think that it's fascinating that the car slows down when you're going that fast, that things inside the cars. How fast with the data that you guys have collected this year and with the combination that you've got in the car and accessible, what do you think the fastest this would go? Within reasons, of course. I mean, you can make it go as fast as you want if you want to make all sorts of crazy risks.
I think this combination, I think what we've got right now with a little more tuning and then the driver doing her job, I think can run at 650. I'd say cool. Pretty easy. I don't know if that's really, but I think there's a 650 in it. I really do. Just without hurting anything and just pretty safe. We like to call it a safe tune-up. With the speed on that, I don't know what that's going to look like. Probably 210, maybe somewhere around there.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and I guess if you were going to say, all right, money is let's not say money is no object, because at that point you'd probably say, well, yeah, I want to go run fuel funny car and tour the NHRA circuit, right? But let's call it within reason. Where would you really like to go? Is a 599 pass kind of your ultimate goal, or?
I've always, when people ask you what you want to be when you what did you want to be when you grew up? Yeah. I always wanted to be a funny car driver. I always wanted to drive a nitro funny car.
Right.
Now, I don't, if someone offered me a ride, of course I would, do a big show car. But I like the nostalgia funny cars.
Yeah.
So, yeah, probably, down the road, I think that's a pretty attainable goal. We have several cars, and we have quite a few parts, to be able to do something like that. Depending, it's finances too. Because
sure.
It's a lot, nitro is a lot more expensive than alcohol, and usually parts attrition is a little bit more as well. But yeah, I think at this point now, I just want to keep going with the car that we've got and just keep, running better with that. And then, I think me and my brother, our plan is to put a nitro car together at some point. We're not exactly sure when that timing's going to be, but we're going to put a nitro car together. It may not be one like the West Coast where they run 560s, but yeah, something, 60s, 590s, that'd be a neat deal.
And you're going to put the Dodge body on that, right?
Yeah, well, actually, we are. So what we're doing, that Dodge body, and that's a different car than another different car than this as far as the chassis. We're putting that car back to how my dad, and that was the first funny car my dad bought was actually a custom body car, which they were actually from up your way, up New York somewhere,
right.
And so we're going to restore that car and body back to how it was and do a mild nitro setup on that.
Cool.
So that probably won't be something that's going to run 60s or 590s. It may only run 690s, but we're just putting it back to basically how my dad had it when he first bought a funny car.
So I piece this together just from our conversation. I thought when you brought it up earlier that you just had the body, but you've got the whole car from when your dad had it. That's cool.
Yes, and we ran. So that chassis, that chassis was under the Charger body that I think you've seen pictures of, and then that is also the same chassis that was under the red Corvette as well. Okay. And we ran it as a altered as well. So if the track wanted an altered, that's what we would bring. And that was what my dad drove that car, and then my brother drove it as well. So yes, we have the whole car.
If you pack both bodies and you're booked at a show, you swap the body over and get paid twice?
No. We've never done that. I mean, maybe we could do that. That's a good idea. Thanks, guys, for that idea.
Yeah, you bet.
Now, you said you also have a Frantic Ford body as well.
No, the Sweetman brothers, they are also running a Frantic Ford body this year. They switched between the Citation and a Frantic Ford body. We were talking about their Citation earlier.
Yeah.
Way back, we had the Frantic Ford stuff on the show, right?
Well, we had Bobby Fry on the show.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was on the Frantic Ford crew, and now he's doing basically old, nostalgia memorabilia type of stuff.
Right,
and
right.
So I mean, I would guess. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Robin knows Bobby.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. We know Bobby. We've known Bobby for a while. He's a good guy. We've seen him several times at different races this year.
Yeah, and I would have to assume that when he's out, if he's out, I mean, is he helping that team at all when they are racing, or are you?
I believe he is. Honestly, I'm not sure if he is involved in that situation or not. I think he is a little bit. Yes.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Bring him up.
I'm not sure what the specifics are, but I do believe he's involved somewhat.
Looking forward, have you got anything booked? Where are we going to see you coming up in 2020?
Well, we're hoping to start getting that schedule together in the next, month or, 2 months, and in the beginning of the year, that's usually when everybody, starts calling around. I would assume it would be at a lot of the same tracks we went to this year, which, we went from Indiana to, last year we ran the Citrus Nationals down in Florida, all over the place. So, I mean, I think we'd probably be in New Jersey again. We'll probably be back at Virginia. We'll be in Ohio, a couple places, Pennsylvania. Specific tracks and dates, I don't know yet.
Right.
But we're looking forward to next year. Hopefully we'll add Canada to that as well, up from where my husband's from.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to building the schedule, maybe even running some more races than we did this year.
I told you 30 minutes, and I told you I was going to try and get you out early, and I just looked at the clock, and it's been so entertaining. I mean,
I was pretty quiet, you can't blame me.
No, I would never dream of blaming you, Ronnie. Would never dream of blaming you. So I apologize for that, but at the same time, it's been fascinating talking about this stuff, because it's a world that we don't really get to dip our toe into a whole lot.
Oh, I agree.
Here.
I completely agree. I mean,
I know kind of a different world.
Yeah, I know when we had Robin's brother on. I mean, we had talked about potentially. It's like having Bunny Burkett on would be just incredible for us, right? I mean, she's a legend, and I mean, you're right. I mean, this is an area that we just don't really get to talk about that often.
Yeah, and they look so cool.
They do, yeah. I mean, to me, nostalgia funny cars are super, super cool. I've always liked them.
Is there anybody that you wanted to make mention of that helps keep the car together? I know Jeffy and your brother, they're big in the team, and you've got a ton of help to help you.
Jeff and my brother are the main two guys, and then the rest of our crew, we've got Doug Martin. We've got his wife Priscilla that comes with us and does anything that she needs to do, and then we've got Bobby Kapler and Dave Molinaro, and then my brother's wife Julia Stambaugh. And yeah, everyone helps out in whatever way they can, which is awesome. It's kind of a family affair. So that's how we like it.
Awesome.
Yep.
30 minutes. Ha.
Yep. Famous last words.
So now Robin, next time Chris is like, oh, can you come on the show for 30 minutes? You'd be like, yeah, okay, 30 minutes. Yeah, I've heard that before.
No, it's okay. This has been great, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been fun kind of telling you guys about the nostalgia funny car racing and about how we do it. So I appreciate that.
Well, hopefully you guys get up here somewhere close and we can come out and actually see you guys run.
Yeah, the red car, the Red Flames car has been at Skyview. It was probably about 10 years ago, but it was at Skyview up that way. And I want to say they went to another track, but I can't remember the name of it. But I know Skyview somewhere around you guys.
Yeah, Skyview is not far. They're closed at this point, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, you have Esta Dragway, you have New York, what used to be New York International Raceway Park, which is now Empire. You have Lancaster Dragway, which is now New York International Raceway Park.
Lebanon Valley.
Lebanon Valley, which isn't too far. That's out Albany way. I mean, you talked about going to Canada, so Toronto Motorsports Park or Grand Bend. I mean, I could certainly see you going to one of those two places for sure.
Yeah, it would be Toronto Motorsports Park. I think they're talking about having a couple shows up there with either their May 2-4 show, their Labor Day show, and then they have the big Canadian Nitro National. So it's not a done deal yet. It's just in talks right now, but we're hoping to be able to get up there for one of those since it's so close to where Jeff is from.
Yeah. Well.
Are you going to be up here on the 4th?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
All right. Jeffy was asking me about what we were doing Monday on the 4th. And
this coming 4th?
Yeah.
Oh, no, not me. Not me. Maybe Jeff, not me.
All right. Well, anyway, I'll see Jeff if nothing else.
There you go.
Cool. At least at this point, I'll feel better if we let you go now. Then we didn't keep you for the full hour.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.
Robin, thanks so much for coming on the show. This was awesome. We're going to do it again, especially when we get a little bit closer to when the schedules and stuff come out. I still have piles and piles of questions about the way the sport works. If you ever get a chance to actually race head to head at stuff that's not invitationals, there's tons of stuff that we can get into when we get a little bit closer to the year, and then we can use that to sort of sidestep into letting people know where you're going to be.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Robin, thank you.
Robin.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now. So cool.
I didn't realize that you had told her only a half an hour.
I did, and I actually specifically said that I'll make sure that Jason's got a little bit of a muzzle so that we don't keep you forever, but it flew by. It flew by.
Yeah.
It's amazing how fast the show goes where I get to talk.
Oh, so you're saying it drags normally. Okay. But yeah, and I have told you in the past that I would like you to be more involved, right? And this is why I'd still love to have a third person on the show, somebody that could run the cameras and pulling up pictures and stuff like that, so you could really participate more in the conversation when that type of stuff is going on. But yeah, it was very, very fast. I mean, I looked at the first time after the intro, and honestly, the next time I looked, we were at 7:45. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. I was watching the clock a couple times, and I'm like, there's no way. Because there's things that we haven't even got into. Kind of like why you don't get to see me anymore. One of the things we didn't get into was the camera broke. I have no idea why the camera shut off. It's gone.
Oh, that's why you have me on.
That is why you are on, because if I cut to the side-by-side shot, it's that. If I cut to me...
That's a good view of you.
It's that, yeah. I dressed up for Halloween.
Well, I did not know that. Well, before we go, I will say that, so it looks like right now, so we kind of gone to a Wednesday schedule at least.
Right. I do need to touch base on the 11th of December.
Yep.
Don't book that yet, because I've got a bunch of trainings that are coming up, and one of them falls on that Wednesday.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So I think right now for the next show, I have Davey Markle on the hook.
Nice.
We may have Tyler Helene on that show as well, or we may have him on the following Wednesday, depending upon what we want to do. In addition to that, I don't think Empire has released when the date for when their banquet is going to be, but we have, I'll call it Lancaster's banquet, that is coming up Friday, December 6th, I believe. Mm-hmm. As part of that, as part of their banquet, they have also announced the 2019 inductees into their Wall of Fame, which is Dan Delaney, Mike Janis, and Jim Salemi. I am definitely going to be going to the banquet to see all three of those gentlemen get inducted into the Wall of Fame. Sure. All great racers, probably really being inducted just as much for their contributions to drag racing away from the track as much as they have been at the track, if you will. So if you go to Lancaster Dragway, I don't know what the heck their Facebook page is, but the information for the banquet is on there. So people can see that, and they can buy tickets. The form for purchasing tickets for the banquet is there too. And we've talked to Gary Jason, I don't know, a couple of months ago. I don't know whether or not they would want us there. We would want to do it, but I don't know. Maybe going to the banquet and doing a broadcast from the banquet like we have for Empire would be on the ticket as well.
Okay.
I mean,
we gotta figure that out. I know one of the dates that you mentioned right there. I think we're gonna go see Lewis Black at Del Lago, as long as that date didn't get canceled. And that would be the Lancaster banquet, I believe.
That'd be the 6th, the Friday the 6th. Okay, I mean, if it is and we can't do it, then it is. Like I said, I'm going regardless. And certainly our viewers, anybody that's interested in going to the banquet, should make sure that they go to the Lancaster Facebook page and get the information and buy their tickets. But
you know what we would also have to do?
What?
We'd have to get a hotspot, because we don't have one right now.
No?
To go out someplace. Unless we did it through phones. That's a lot of data to shove through a phone.
Yeah, and I honestly, to be perfectly honest, I know the date and the time, but I don't know.
We could go tape something.
Yeah, I don't even. I would say, like, for Lancaster's banquet, I don't even know where it is. So like at Empire's banquet, I mean, I know they had it at the hotel there at Mount Morris, that they had Wi-Fi potentially that we could get into, but I don't even know. Like I said, I couldn't even tell you where Lancaster's banquet is. So yeah, I wouldn't want to rely on somebody else's Wi-Fi, and
we'll get all that stuff straightened out as we get a little bit closer to it and figure some more of the details out for the rest of our shows and stuff. It's nice to have a couple of guests booked out ahead of time.
Yeah,
that's certainly a nice problem to have. But otherwise, we'll keep everybody in tune to it. We're not going to be on next week at all, because I'll be in Topeka. But the following week is when we'll have. Who'd you say was going to be on? Now I blanked.
Davey Markle.
Davy's coming on the first time. I'm glad I didn't say anything, because I had him flip-flop. Perfect. We'll be looking forward to catching up with Davey Markle on our next episode. But so what do you think? This was a good one.
It was.
I had a lot of fun. This
good.
was a good episode. Well, we do appreciate Rob and Stambaugh-Schoeman coming on and hanging out. Let's talk a little bit about the Nostalgia Funny Cars. We're going to be back again in a couple of weeks, and we'll do it again. We'll see you all next time.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
This has been the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. We'll see you right back here again in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.